What is up, my hobby friends? Warren D in the CLE here, right back with it. Um, just going to start off today. Going to do a VR for Dan over at Old Sarge Collects. Uh, he wanted us to do a VR telling about two of our favorite MLB teams, and then show a couple of our favorite cards, but also talk about why we love these teams and or what really got us into them. And then after that, I'm gonna just show a few oddball sets, like the Kmart's, the Woolworths, the Ames, the Hills department stores. Just gonna show a few cards. I'm not gonna go through every single set, but talk about. I love those sets. I know they're not worth a lot of money, but there's stories behind it and connections that really, to me, that's what it's all about. And connections to family and memories and just a different time. So that's it. I guess we'll just get right into it. Let's just jump right to it. So obviously we know one of my favorite teams already, guys. I have it everywhere. It's pretty much in every video, is the Cleveland Indians / Guardians. They will always be the Indians to me. That's just the way I look at it. But I will always support a Cleveland baseball team no matter what their name is. It doesn't matter to me. It's the guys playing the uniform, not the goofballs that make crazy, weird decisions and whatnot. So just my opinion. You know, I don't want anybody to get panties in a bunch or anything like that. So that being said, really why I love the Indians goes back to 1987. I never really went to a major league park before in my life. Went to a couple minor league parks in Carolina way back in the 80s, but never got to see anything like Cleveland Municipal Stadium. And walking in that stadium, to me, changed my life forever. It was like walking into the greatest cathedral I've ever seen in my life. The grass, I've never seen grass like that in my entire life. The size of Municipal Stadium, and I think at that time it held like 79,000 people, and they would get it on opening day, and it didn't matter how bad the teams were back then. But 87 was pretty significant that year. One, it was my first game, and I wish I had the ticket stub, but I don't. I lost it somewhere down the way, and I think they were playing the Baltimore Orioles, if I remember correctly. But there was so much going on, and it was so loud. I never heard anything so loud in my life when fans cheering and people screaming, Julio! That was for Julio Franco. You would hear it every time he come to the bat. People just screaming Julio. And I always loved watching Julio play, and he was one of my favorites. But really, that year too was Sports Illustrated came out with their 87 preseason magazine. It had Corey Snyder and Joe Carter on the front. And it said, yes, that's right. Cleveland Indians are the best team in the American League. And unfortunately, that year they weren't. They finished 61 and 101, last place, basically. That good old SI curse, right? And that was, they lost 61 or lost 101 games, and they had three guys hit 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. Corey Snyder hit 33, Joe Carter hit 32, and I think Brooke Jacoby hit 32, if I remember right. Carter had 106 RBIs. The problem was nobody could pitch, and they had Phil Niekro, toward the end of his career, and Steve Carlton too. Doug Jones was just, basically starting to get going as a closer then. Boy, the pitching was awful that year. We just couldn't score. So there's one of my teams. I'm going to show a card, but it's connected to Cleveland in that year. It's a let's see if I can get, there it is. 1987 Sport Flex. I love Sport Flex cards. It's Joe Carter. Joe Carter became one of my favorite players back then. My brother was a big Andre Thornton guy. Speaking of my brother, talking about the Indians. And when I was about 17, got my license, my brother and I would drive and go get cheap bleacher tickets or the cheapest tickets we can get. And back then, man, As long as you had a ticket, you could sit anywhere you wanted. So we would go sit on third base side, first base side. If we were in their seats, we got up and move. Nobody said anything back then. It was just a different time. But we went to just go watch baseball. Obviously, we'd love to see guys at that time, if Boston was coming in town or Baltimore, whoever, it didn't matter. We didn't care. But we would just go see a few games of summer, just he and I, just go watch baseball. So there's that one there. Dan, I hope you guys like that one. My next one would have to be the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mainly because, my whole side of the family was from Pittsburgh. At least my dad, my mom was born there. Actually, my mom wasn't born there. Sorry. Anyway, but they grew up there. And hearing the stories from my dad, and a couple guys, a guy that was married to my grandmother at the time, because my dad's dad had passed away a long time ago. But anyway, I digress. Just hearing the stories about Clemente and Mazeroski and Elroy Face and, those guys, but also the We Are Family years, with Pop Stargell and Bill Madlock and those guys. I just remember those times. Those teams too, and my dad would always watch, but also my grandmother, God rest her soul. She loved watching the Pirates. She always called them the Buccos, and she would tell me stories about just sometimes she would be able to go down to Forbes Field and see a game and just stories of players she liked, and she liked Mazeroski and oh boy, I forget the other guy's name. Sorry. Anyway, but it's just about the connections to the town. And I lived in Pittsburgh when I went to culinary school for a while, so I get to really appreciate the town and the teams. But also, I got to go down to the stadium, 90, 92. I watching those guys play. It was just, I love being there. It didn't matter. But just great memories. And some of the first beer I ever had was on opening day for Pirates in 1993. And we were just doing crazy, I was 19, 20 years old, and I'm sitting there bonging beers before going to the stadium. So good times, great memories. Of course I love Clemente. We've already had that conversation, but a favorite card of mine, and once again, it's about connections, is a 61 Bill Mazeroski, and this is just a really pretty card. Very well. I love this card. It will never get graded. I like it just the way it is. My father gave me this card. Like I said, it was one of the first vintage cards, and he would tell me about all the defensive records that Maz held for a very long time, and I think he still owns a few of them. But just what a phenomenal player, and obviously hits one of the most memorable home runs in World Series history, MLB history, really. So there you go, guys. My two favorite teams and reasons why. And Dan, I hope that was good enough for the VR, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, moving on, because I don't like to make these too long. Going to talk about some of my favorite sets. I know they're not worth anything. They don't need to be. They mean something to me. So, like the 1982 Kmart sets. I love these sets because my mom she worked at Woolworths and did some time at Kmart back in the day, and she would bring me some of these sets home when she got off work. I think everybody's familiar with this Kmart Mickey Mantle. I love this cards, but this is also how I got to learn about these players. I couldn't afford those cards back then, even though they were a hell of a lot cheaper then than they are now. But I got to see, I didn't know who Elston Howard was, but I read these cards and I learned about them. Koufax. And if you couldn't afford getting their rookie cards even back then, well, I can't even do them now, but I still have a connection to the players, and I get to enjoy the cards, and I love them. So, and that's all that matters to me. and I think they're awesome. Here's a, it's pretty fun. This is 1989. Yeah, 89. Fleer Heroes of Baseball. It's a Woolworths exclusive. Fun stuff. I think the cards are awesome. Of course, there's a Will Clark. You know, it came. This was 44 cards, and you got stickers, all that stuff. But I love it. It's got Hall of Famers in there. Robin Yount. There's another bucko right there. Andy Van Slyke. I always liked him. I liked the way he played. Played the game hard. Good times. There's a Cal Ripken. I think they're pretty. I think they're beautiful cards, man. And for those of you that are newer to the hobby, it might be a great way for you to break in at a reasonable cost and enjoy players. If you want to start player runs, great way to do it. Cheap. You can get most of these sets for under $5. Some of them can hit, some not crazy prices, but and there's some regional sets out there too that you just don't see very often. Here's a Hills Department Store Team MVPs. I love these cards because they're super glossy. And some of these sets are actually better than the regular. The card stock is better. Just my opinion. I almost dropped that card. But even then, Hall of Famers. Eddie Murray's in here for the Orioles. One of my all-time favorite players growing up was Dale Murphy, because we didn't have any major league teams that we could watch, but we were able to get cable at times, and I got to watch Atlanta Braves games and Cubs games. So that's how I got to know baseball like that too. And I have a connection to those teams that I love. But there's a nice Tony Gwynn. They're glossy cards, beautiful card stock, very well made, and a lot of the sets are like that. So one other quick pickup, real quick, guys, and I'm gonna get us out of here. I was watching John Mangini the other day, and I think he actually posted on his Facebook and all that. He showed here's how you know you love cards, and he showed the 1992 Fleer, the Performer cards that came from like Citgo gas stations. But John, you inspired me. I bought a individual set, but I saw these. So 3 card panels, uncut. I think they're awesome. Now they're going to be hard to store, but I have things that I can, from stamp collecting, envelope sleeves that these will go in. Come on, man, there's great players in here. But I love it. They're uncut because you guys know I like the oddball stuff, and I saw it and I'm like, boom, done. And I think there's like 3 complete sets there. I haven't really gone through them all, but just great stuff, guys. Hey, man, as I always say, one more card I want to show before I forgot. I almost forgot. But talking about the Indians again and learning the history of the game, I found this card and I love it. Destruction Crew. I mean, come on. I think that year those guys hit like 72 home runs combined and had, 78 home runs and 238 RBIs for 3 guys. Minnie Minoso, Rocky Colavito, and of course, the great Larry Doby. So that's it, guys. That's all I got to show you. Be good to each other out there, and we'll see you again next week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.